King John's Castle has stood in Limerick City for over 800 years. Throughout the centuries, the castle has been integral for those in control of the city. Its strategic location has provided a stronghold for reigning powers in the city, but also as a refuge at certain times for those who resisted such powers. During the 18th century, a barracks was built inside the castle walls for the purpose of the British Army, which can be seen in a closer examination of the 1752 map of Limerick City by William Ayres. The castle continued to be used as a military base for the British Army right up until the early 20th century, but the signing of the Anglo-Irish Treaty in December 1921 changed everything. Under the terms of the treaty, Ireland would become the Irish Free State, but remained a dominion within the British Empire. Following a debate in the Dáil from the 14th of December 1921 until the 7th of January 1922, the treaty was passed by a majority of 7 votes. In February 1922, the last British regimental force evacuated the castle, which was to be left to the Irish Free State Force under the leadership of General Michael Brennan. In the fight for control of the newly independent state of Ireland, the city of Limerick was considered a point of strategic importance for both the pro- and anti-treaty sides. The Irish Republican Army was split over the treaty, when about 75% of the force rejected it. Stephen O'Mara, the mayor of Limerick, joined the anti-treaty side and became involved in the new Cumann na Poblachta, or the Republican Party. Ernie O'Malley wrote to Rory O'Connor in Dublin on the 9th of March requesting that explosives be sent to Limerick in order to launch an attack on King John's Castle, but O'Connor refused as a means of halting the slide towards civil war. O'Malley believed that if the IRA did not act in Limerick, the Free State forces would occupy the main military barracks in Dublin, Athlone and Limerick. O'Connor would eventually share this view, and on the 14th of April 1922, irregular forces under his leadership seized the forecourts in Dublin. Following the election victory on the 16th of June over the anti-treaty side, the provisional government gained the basis to act. On the 28th of June, pro-treaty forces began their assault on the forecourts garrison, which O'Connor and his men had occupied for over 2 months. The Civil War had begun.
Once the fighting in Dublin drew to a close on the 28th of June, it was clear that the focus would shift to Limerick. After the British Army removed themselves from the city, the anti-treaty IRA units under the command of Liam Ford and Liam Lynch took control of the 4 main military barracks: the New Barracks, the Ordnance Barracks, the Strand Barracks and the Castle Barracks. The pro-treaty Brennan knew that if the Republicans succeeded in Limerick and the South East, they would have a springboard for a move on Dublin. Thus, Brennan's forces entered the city and captured important buildings such as Cruises Hotel, the Courthouse, the Jail and William Street RIC Barracks. From the outset, the anti-treaty forces, known as diehards, were considered a significant force as they had the advantage of a larger army. Brennan's army converged on Limerick with raw recruits and little arms to defend themselves, but their positions at St Mary's Cathedral, Mary Street Police Barracks and the Potato Market gave them an advantageous viewpoint of both the Strand and Castle Barracks, which isolated the IRA garrisons. Although Mayor Stephen O'Mara had shaped a truce between the two sides, the Civil War inevitably arrived in Limerick, with violence erupting on the 11th of July 1922. The opening fire by Free State soldiers on William Street marked the beginning of the 10 days of fighting within the city. If Lynch had assessed the gravity of the situation in Limerick early, he could have forced Brennan and his forces to retreat from the city. His misconception that Brennan's forces were the equivalent to his own gave Brennan the time he needed to wait for more recruits and artillery. By reneging on the agreement between Brennan and Lynch, the IRA gained a brief propaganda victory over the pro-treaty side after they published newspaper articles citing the terms of the truce agreement that Brennan had broken. On the 3rd day of fighting, a Republican bulletin described the abandonment of the truce by the Free State Army and their attempted exploitation to turn the people of Limerick against the Republicans. Although Lynch appealed to the people to join the fight, he was relatively unsuccessful. Brennan organised his troops into vital positions beside the Strand Barracks and areas around Thomond Bridge. On the opposite side of the river, Stephen Kennedy was in charge of the IRA garrison within the Castle Barracks. At this stage, the castle was already surrounded by Free State soldiers who had taken up residence in the neighbouring private houses. The castle's location by the river and Thomond Bridge made it strategically important for both armies. It was not until the 4th day of fighting that the pro-treaty forces attempted their first attack on the Castle Barracks. They used armoured cars and a machine gun to shell the walls. However, this attack fell short as the ancient stone fortress remained intact. It is possible that the attackers knew they would not inflict serious damage, but in doing so they would put pressure on the defenders of the castle within the walls. The Free State Army were confident enough to launch a second attack on the castle the following day. This confidence derived from the fact that a ship, the SS Arovina, had arrived in Limerick bringing reinforcements and supplies for Brennan's troops. However, Kennedy and his troops within the castle were successful in resisting the attack, and the pro-treaty army were forced to withdraw. Hearing of the failed attack to capture the castle barracks, General Ono Duffy decided to depart for Limerick with a large quantity of Free State reinforcements, including a Rolls-Royce armoured car, 2 Lancia armoured cars, 4 trucks with 400 rifles, 10 Lewis machine guns, 400 grenades and an 18-pounder cannon. The addition of these weapons allowed the Free State to mount a devastating attack on the Strand Barracks on the 19th of July, which led to the surrender of the barracks. With the loss of the Strand Barracks and the strategic location of the Free State Army at St Mary's Cathedral, the influence of the Castle Barracks was severely limited. Inevitably, Free State soldiers advanced on the castle without much opposition and began shelling its walls.
The heavy shelling of the castle walls set it ablaze on the 20th of July. It is still unknown whether the fire was caused by the Free State's attack on the castle or by the IRA garrison within, who may have set it ablaze during their retreat. Scale Casa Limni, a newsletter, stated on the 21st of July that at about 12:30 this morning, the irregulars set fire to all the barracks in their possession, and these fine buildings are now a heap of ashes. The following day, the Limerick Chronicle stated that the Republican forces purposefully burned down 3 of the 4 main military barracks they evacuated, so that the Free State could not use them to their advantage. Kennedy ordered the remaining IRA volunteers to retreat, but when they attempted to withdraw, they realised that the castle was surrounded. Instead of being captured, they were rescued by local fishermen who rowed up the River Shannon alongside the castle walls. This was the 4th and final time the castle was besieged, some 280 years after the 1642 siege. Following the Civil War, the castle was almost completely destroyed on the inside. As a result, it remained closed until the 1930s. At both Limerick and Waterford, the Free State's advantage in weaponry, particularly artillery, was decisive. Despite the intensive street fighting in Limerick, the casualties of the combatants were relatively low. The people of Limerick gathered on the streets on the evening of the 20th of July to watch the night sky fill with smoke. The fires in the new barracks, the Ordnance Barracks and the Castle Barracks blazed. The war in Limerick was over and the pro-treaty side had won. The Republican Army under Liam Lynch failed to devise any coherent military strategy, and as a result, Brennan's forces were able to attack and conquer the most strategically important positions one by one. The fall of Limerick led to a chain reaction throughout the country, and can be considered a significant factor in the Free State's eventual Civil War victory in 1923.